Good morning, everybody. This is Bill Klingberg with SCORE in Houston. Welcome to our digital marketing webinar this morning. First, I'd like to remind you of a few things about SCORE. If you have questions and comments, please go to our website, houston.score.org, and there are three buttons at the top. Find a mentor is one of them. Click on that. You can put in a keyword, and a mentor with that kind of experience will get back to you and set up some sort of a Zoom or online meeting with you. We have 150 members here in Houston that with differing backgrounds. We have lawyers, we have accountants, we have marketing people, we have salespeople, manufacturing, that kind of thing. We are here to help you wade through all of this. We've never been through a COVID-19 shutdown like this. However, we've seen just about every other problem that has cropped up in the past as far as businesses go. And so we are here to help. Just come and ask us, please. Jessica Cohen is a digital marketing consultant for RevLocal. She's had a lot of experience at this. She's of an age where she knows more than us old SCORE guys. And that's the reason I've asked her to share her knowledge and experience with us today. The webinar will be recorded and will be on our website later. I can't guarantee when, but it'll be a few days. Thank you very much for showing up. And Q&A box at the bottom is where you type in your answers, or your questions rather, and Jessica will answer them en masse at the end of the presentation. You will all stay muted during the presentation, and with Jessica being able to unmute you, depending upon how many of you are actually there. We have 42 participants right now. That's quite a few. So she probably won't unmute you, but she has the ability to do so. Certainly she'll be able to answer your questions. So Jessica, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Bill. I really appreciate it. Yes, like he said, I am a digital marketing consultant. I may look fairly young, but I've actually been in digital marketing pretty much my whole adult life. So the last like 12 years, and I've seen everything sort of transition from, the first smartphone with Samsung and with Apple to kind of like where we're at now. And, even transitioning from things like, organic SEO to what we now have as local SEO, and then just paid ads, the introduction of social media, like what that actually means. I'm not entirely sure what the backgrounds are of the participants here today, but especially during this time with COVID, this is actually the perfect time if you have a business, or if you want to audit your business, or if you want to make changes to your business, or if you just want to make sure that you're kind of staying up to date with some of the things that are relevant to digital marketing for your business, especially if you're a local brick and mortar. These are all sort of tips and pointers and things that we get directly from Google. RevLocal is a premier digital marketing partner with Google. So they actually come out to our office. It's actually our office, a picture of our office here on the screen. And we get a lot of training from us. So everything that we're going to go over today is like super up to date with the latest algorithms, with best practices, just to make sure that you are staying relevant with the search engines and everything online. So we're going to cover four of I think they're pillars of digital marketing. So you have, your local search, which is, we're going to get more into that. Review marketing, everyone knows how important reviews are, not just on Google, but on other platforms such as Yelp and Facebook. Even if you're, kind of like in a specialized vertical, like contractors, they have House and, Home Advisor. Angie's List was a big one for a long time. And then of course, like social media. So just how to use some of those things. So a little bit more about me. So I do have longer hair in that photo. I've since hacked it off at the beginning of the year. But, like I said, my name is Jessica Cohen, and I work for a digital marketing agency called RevLocal. We are here in Houston. If you want to save my contact information and reach out after the presentation for, more tips and guides, or if you just want to I don't know, schedule a consultation to kind of go over what you currently have in place, I'm happy to do that. We actually offer that free to the businesses here in Houston. So we just want to make sure that, you know, people understand what those best practices are. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this. And we're going to start with local search. I will say that this presentation will probably take a little over an hour. If at the very end, you know, you would like a copy of it, I'm happy to send it out. If you want to take screenshots, it's totally cool, or take notes. But I will be sending this out if you would like it. So we're going to start with local search. So why does your business need it? You know, there are fundamental blocks, and while everything is important, everything from paid ads and social media and reviews and things like that, you know, a lot of people can get a little bit flustered about where to start. This is where you want to start. And the reason that is because nowadays, the first place most people will go is to their phone. And then the first thing they'll open up is probably Google, and they'll probably search something or type something into search. So in this particular example, we used, you know, tax relief in Houston because that's the city that we live in. You actually don't even have to type in the city anymore because of the geo location in your phone. It'll actually pull where you are as the map marker and then pull up the relevant searches that are around you. So on the screen, you'll see that a search is broken up into 3 different areas. So you have at the very top, the paid ads section, which is through Google, and you can pay for ads to show up there. It is very much pay to play. So if you've got some money for that, every industry is a little bit different. It's going to vary how much, you know, your budget should be for that. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, I paid money for paid ads and I didn't really see anything come out of it. Chances are you probably didn't allocate enough funds to see it go through that learning phase to really aggregate the data that it needed for it to be successful. So if you are interested in paid ads, I highly recommend partnering with someone that knows what they're doing, so that way you're not just like throwing money to see what sticks, or just even flushing that investment. So that is something that is much more technical. I highly advise against starting there unless you are, you know, certified and know what you're doing with paid ads. Local search is the part here in the middle with the red square around it. So it's the map section. So basically it's going to pull search results based on a couple different things, but mainly it's going to be location based. So what's nearest to you and what's relevant to that keyword that you're searching for. And then the third component of that it's going to pull is actually your reputation. So and the reason Google actually presents the information that it does is the name of it, the reviews, and then you'll see a category associated right there next to the reviews. It's like tax attorney, and one of them will say tax consultant. So each business, whenever you create your GMB, which is what that is, the Google My Business listing, is going to have you kind of plug in sort of what you want to be known for. Now, it recommends that you have a primary service and then a couple of different other things that you might specialize in, but you definitely don't want to pick like 10 different things because it's highly unlikely that you're super amazing at 10 different things. I mean, unless you've been in business for like 30 years and, you know, it just has developed in that way. So local search is going to pull from those 3 major components. So like your name, your relevancy to that, your reputation, and then where you're located in the area where you're searching. And then you'll see some other ads, some organic listings show up below the map section. So when in the past, when you've probably heard about organic SEO, that's pulling from the website and content on the website. So whereas it used to be super important, I mean, and it still kind of is, especially if you're educational or medical or have a blog and you want people actually spending time on your website, then organic search results are still super important. But if you just want someone to call you or get driving directions and take a local action, then local search, which is local SEO, is going to be much more relevant to you. So how to build that. So one of the main things that you'll want to do to build that reputation and that trust with search engines so that we show up on the map is to take care of those local citations, which are basically the directory listings. So if you were to Google a business directly by the name of the business name, so in this case, Advanced Tax Relief, you're going to pull everything that they have, sort of like their digital footprint online. And this is everything that search engines, in this particular case, Google, has indexed for that business. So you'll see the website, because that's sort of like the hub of where all this content is pulling from, is generally going to appear at the top. And then after that, it's going to be everything sort of like ranking in order of like engagement, of content, how well it's being optimized, you know, if there's pictures, if people have left reviews, you know, even just like how important or relevant that site is. So you see like the top two, for example, is like the homepage to the website, and then it's the website and it's the contact us page, which means that that probably has a lot of traffic going towards it. The next one after that is BBB, obviously another major player, Facebook, and then you have MapQuest and Yelp. Now, some people might say, okay, well, why do I need a MapQuest? Like, I've never used MapQuest, it's not even relevant. Well, it might not be relevant to you, and you might not use it, but other people might. And there's two factors to consider, that there's other people that might use it, and then the search engines use it. So they're looking to, you should be looking to satisfy both of those sort of requests. And MapQuest is still one of those things that, you know, is relevant to that sort of, I guess, overall list of, I think it's like 150 to 200 directories that, you know, are being scanned to look for that information. So there are different free scans that you can use, and I can actually add that or send that out as well. So you can run a scan on your own business to just kind of see what sort of citations you have. There is a technical way to do that, or you can just Google yourself and see what comes up. If you Google yourself and nothing comes up, then that means that you literally don't have a digital footprint, or you have maybe a minor one. The other thing that you want to make sure is that however you're spelling your business name is correct and the same across the board. So you'll notice here that it says Advanced Tax Relief LLC, 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 and it's always the same way. However you type it, make sure it stays the same everywhere. So don't have, you know, commas and then no commas or periods, or even, you know, capitalized letters. Google is very binary in that sense, where it wants everything to look exactly the same. Even how you show your phone number. You know, if you use parentheses, make sure you use parentheses across the board. If you use a dash in between some of the numbers, make sure that you're using a dash, you know, and so forth. Same thing with your address. You know, if you have a suite number, if you are going to actually write out the word suite, make sure you write it out everywhere. If you use STE, the abbreviation, that's fine too, but just, again, make sure that it's the same across the board. So those citations. So that's one of the things that goes into kind of being found online is the citations. Now there's other things as well. So you want to have like your content. So how are you filling in these citations is with content. What is your business description? So is that very easy to understand? If people were to read it, is that something that's easy to remember? Is that something that they would be able to relay to someone else if they were referring you business? So whereas, and that's important to kind of spend some time just kind of figuring out, okay, who am I? What am I trying to achieve with my business? And how do I make this like super easy for people to remember? Back in the day, people were encouraged to create these really super heavy content websites. People don't read so much anymore. So they want to be able to see it. They want to be able to experience, get a good vibe from it, and understand what you're doing very quickly right off the bat. So it's like, we went from this like era of super content generation to like, okay, you've got a couple seconds to really acquire my attention. You know, do I like you? Did you pass? And then am I actually going to click through to your website or your phone number or get driving directions to your business? So again, like simplifying it, making sure that it makes sense. So that's the part of it that kind of goes into the content generation. If you are writing blogs, that's great, especially if it's a part of your business model. To have people come and read content, is just make sure you're including call to actions at the end of it, so people understand, you know, what you want them to sort of do or what action you want them to take after the fact. A lot of people use email marketing. You know, MailChimp is fantastic for that. You know, Constant Contact is a paid version of that. And it's just another way to kind of get content out there that people wouldn't otherwise see if they weren't visiting your website. Maybe social media isn't really your vibe. You can use something like MailChimp to kind of promote and let people know kind of what's going on with your business in terms of updates and promotions and things like that. So the social media networks, those are also super important now, especially when it comes to, because they're each also considered citations or, you know, directory listings. Facebook is essentially a search engine now. It's sort of changing over, but it's a big one. And again, whereas you might not have a Facebook, it's necessary. Mainly because it is one of the first sites, as we saw on the first page, that is pulling from on Google to get some of that information. Now you do have to have a personal Facebook page to create a business, just because they want to make sure that they're verifying that information and that it's not just spam. I guess like there was a time where people just sort of creating that and they had to link it to kind of keep track on that. So yeah, so it has to be tied to a personal page. You don't have to have an active personal page to have a business page, but you can also assign, you know, admin roles to that if you don't want to someone else, that way they can manage it for you. Instagram is another big one, just mainly because it's visual. It is also transitioning into a citation pretty soon here, where you will be able to get driving directions from there and also leave reviews. So as you know, Instagram is owned by Facebook. If you're running ads, for example, on Facebook, it is going to also show on Instagram, which is really cool, because it creates those impressions automatically and you're not having to pay doubly. So whereas, you know, Facebook can target a certain demographic and showcase a certain type of content or information, with Instagram, you can have a little bit more fun with it and have a completely different ad set for that. You know, Twitter is notoriously known for microblogging, just kind of sharing promotions, quick updates, you know, hey, this is what we're doing. It's a different level of activity. And then LinkedIn, as you know, is a professional network. I mean, it's very much B2B. It can be B2C, but it's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You can feel very confident about positioning yourself in a way where it's like, I'm looking to do this, or I'm looking to connect with this person. I'm looking to sell this or acquire this. These are the call to actions. So it's a much more direct platform, whereas they're all super important. It's good to work with the ones that are going to be relevant to your business style. So even with websites, okay, so this is like a big one. With websites, we always recommend using WordPress. Google loves WordPress. I think it's like 80% of websites are built on WordPress. It's super adaptable. It's super easy to learn, to work with, to navigate if you have different developers working on it. It's easy to integrate different plugins from Google to track analytics and things like that. And then also you can audit your site on your own to make sure that you're staying up to date with what Google's looking for. I would recommend against using things like Wix. If you're on a budget and you need a website and you want to use it sort of as a digital business card, I think it's great. But for the long term, it's going to be a little bit hard to use something like that because it is a closed circuit template site. So it's not going to be indexable by search engines. So people would physically have to like Google the name of your URL and visit there directly in order to find it online. Or it would have to be linked to like you know, like a Facebook page, something someone could click over to it, but it would not be able to be found on that first page of Google. So just something to keep in mind when you're, you know, spending time and investing in websites and things like that. So we are going to go into paid advertising down the section. We are still going to talk about place placement and quality, you know, the directory reach. Yext is another platform that can help you sort of manage some of these citations. But at the bulk of this, citations are super important. I hope that that's kind of what y'all are getting from this page, is that it's important that whatever pages that you're developing online and how you're creating your digital footprint, that it's being done with quality and with care. So don't just like create something and neglect it. Make sure that you're managing it and that you have systems in place to manage some of those things for you. Okay, so before getting into all of that, the most important citation is the GMB. So the Google My Business listing. This is totally free to create. You can do it just using a Google account. You're going to go to create, you know, Google My Business listing, and this is what it will look like within Google. But it's totally free to do. You're literally going to search the name of your business, and if it doesn't populate, you can just claim it or create it. And what Google will do is it'll try to either call that phone number that's tied to your business, or it's going to send you a postcard to verify that it is a real business. So the reason it's going to try and send you a postcard is because, again, it wants to make sure that you are physically located at that address that you say you're being located at, before you can kind of get in there and do any of the fun stuff like adding photos or business hours or websites or things like that. This is super, super important. Most outside of your website, this is where Google is pulling most of the information that it needs for your business. And this is just getting more and more and more complex. If you're a restaurant, you can even put in your food menu, service list. There's a lot that can kind of go into this. So if you don't already have a GMB, this is where you want to get started. if you do have a GMB or you Google your business and you do come across a GMB that's been created for your business, but you don't have access to it, you can actually click to suggest an edit and then own this business. Now, what it'll do is it's going to send out an email to the email that created this GMB and say that you are requesting access to it. Now, if it's yours, obviously you'll be able to just log in and click OK and then remit access to it. If not, it's going to send that person an email saying that, and they can either accept it or deny it. If they take no action, that it relinquishes rights to it, and then you can take ownership of it after about a week. Sometimes employees will create these, or Google will create it on its own, but there's a lot of GMBs that are just kind of floating out there with either misinformation or incorrect information, for example, like a wrong phone number, or like in this case, this one is missing a website. So if this is your business and someone were to come across this in Google in a search result, you want to make sure that they can get a hold of you, or that the address is correct, or that the website is correct. But if it doesn't have any information and doesn't really have any value, and it's going to create a negative experience for the person that came across it. So you want to make sure that you've claimed your GMB and that you're managing it, that you have access to it, so that way you're getting notifications for it. If somebody were to leave a review, you're supposed to get a review email saying, hey, so-and-so left this, and then you have the opportunity to reply back. So there's other features to that GMB. You can also add appointments. If that's, for example, like a third-party site outside of your main website. Some people use Square. If you're maybe like a hairstylist and use something like Booksy or something like that, all of those can be sort of programmed into it. If you know that people call and ask a lot of the same questions, you can also add the FAQ there, and then other people can ask questions there as well. And again, you'll receive an email with that notification saying so-and-so asked this question, and then you can reply back to it. But it'll store that information there for you, so that way other people can see it. But as you can see, like the more filled out the GMB gets, the more likely it is for me to kind of be like, oh, okay, this is a legitimate business. They've got 90 reviews, for example, at a 4.7 star rating. It's an air conditioning company. They're open until 7 p.m. today. That's another thing also to consider. So if you'll see during the hours it says open, this is why it's important to put in your business hours, is that if you do a search result and you're technically closed, you're not going to show up necessarily unless you like adjust your settings in your phone, but you won't show up as a search result. So Google's going to want to present information to you that's going to allow you to take an action. So if I called, for example, at 8 p.m., this person might not show up unless they're super close to where I'm located as a search result, because they're technically closed. So no one would be there to answer the phone. So you want to make sure that all that information is accurate and up to date. Some people will even say that they're open 24 hours if they're a service area industry, or that they have service hours outside of their normal business hours, so that way they can still continue to show up in some of those search results. But make sure to update your logo, make sure to add some photos, so that way people can trust and kind of get an idea or a bigger picture of what it is to do business with you and what your business looks like. So this is an example of what that postcard looks like. So you can do all of those things, add the photos, add the business information, the description, and things like that, but it won't actually go live to the public or be visible until you've verified your listing. So like I said, you're either going to wait for a postcard to come in from Google. This is what it would look like. And you would just log right back into your GMB and put in that PIN, or they can try and send a phone call through and do it that way. So monitoring your listing. So again, because people aren't necessarily going to websites as much as they used to back in the day, what Google and with other social media platforms have seen is that people are just kind of looking to aggregate data very quickly and kind of move on. So there's two places that people kind of search for that, and that's Google. So now you have Google Posts, which also is really cool because anything that's written in the text or the copy is indexable as a keyword. So you want to make sure that you're adding a cool little graphic to it, and that you're filling it with keywords that are going to be relevant in searches, so it can populate this as a search result. Same thing is happening with Facebook posts that have a certain level of engagement. Same thing with Instagram and things like that. So just to reach more of an audience, and again to make sure that that content, you're building up that keyword strategy. use things like that, especially Google Posts, to update some of the information. So for example, during COVID right now, if you're open and you're still serving the public, I would put through a Google Post and just say, add a graphic, say, hey, we're still open for business, we're still serving the community, or we're still taking appointments, our doors might be closed, but we're still answering phones, things like that. And then I would also do the same thing, for example, on Facebook, and then maybe pin it to the top, so that way if somebody were to land on your Facebook page, they can see, okay, they're still open. And that's going to create a lot of visibility in those two places, because like I said, a lot of people aren't necessarily updating their business hours, and no one's going to call around to check to see if everyone's open or not. But those are the two general places people will check just to confirm, okay, is there some activity? Has this been updated within the past week or the couple of weeks? And then, where is their stance on this? And then that'll be a good practice to maintain, like just moving forward. Hey, this is what we're doing this month. This is our special. This is our promotion. This is our sort of seasonal, trend. This is our tip. And then just kind of maybe set a calendar reminder for yourself, or do it on the first day of the month. And that way it just kind of becomes a practice moving forward. But like I said, Google will index this information, so it's highly effective. Okay, so moving into reviews. This is actually my favorite thing, just because it makes such an impact. 30% of your ability to show up in search results, local search results, is due to reviews. And there's 3 different places that you want to aggregate those reviews. We're going to go into this, but I'm excited. And that's going to be Google. First and foremost, Google is king. If you're getting Google reviews, that's where you need to be focusing your energy. A bad review is still good for the algorithm. So obviously the more reviews you get, then the less that bad review will really impact you, but just reviews. The next place after that would be Facebook. And then after that, Yelp. But I'm sure, people have had different experiences with Yelp. Sometimes they hide reviews on Yelp. What I would say in my recommendation with Yelp is just, if people are avid Yelpers, let them go ahead and leave them a review for you. But don't really actively push it. And really, I would say focus your energy on Google and Facebook. So this is just some of the statistics that are tied to that. But the star rating, 42% of people said that they would not purchase from a business with fewer than 3 stars. So no stars is a part of that. So if you've been in business, and even though you might be the best at what you do, if you have no reviews, then for me, it's kind of like, okay, wait, they've got this great looking website, they've got this great store, they've been here for a while, why don't they have any reviews? That kind of makes me second guess. It makes me feel a little bit, I don't know that I trust this business, and probably force me to continue shopping around, and maybe I'll keep them on the back burner, but I might not pull the trigger if I don't see that someone has reviews. Now, this is a bit excessive. This person has 1,000 reviews. That's awesome. But that also goes to solidify, hey, obviously they're doing something right. They're still in business. They're getting a bunch of awesome feedback. They're located on Shepherd. I know that's a busy road here in Houston. They're open. They've got events. I mean, this is a great looking GMB. So right off the bat, I know, hey, you know what? I'm probably going to have a positive experience if I go to Fat Cat Creamery. So just keep that in mind. If you don't have a great star rating, it's okay. I mean, you can't make everyone happy. And a lot of people, kind of shy away from asking for reviews because they're like, well, what if I don't get the best review? Honestly, if you're not getting the best reviews, maybe that's also something to just consider within your business model. What can I do to improve and to be better, and to improve the quality of my service and my products to my customers? Because at the end of the day, I mean, people are going to weed themselves out with the people that they do business with. And it's important to heed that feedback. It's also important to reply back to reviews. So if someone, and I'm sure if you've been actively asking for reviews and you get, like 1 in 5 out of those requests, go in and show some gratitude. I would recommend that you go in and reply to that review and say, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to leave that feedback for me, even if it's a bad one, and be like, hey, why don't you give me a call and we can talk about this, and maybe I can do something to sort of, correct that situation if it was some bad feedback. But also, icing on the cake, Google loves when you reply to reviews. So it actually helps count more. And that's just also good practice. But you want to also get maybe a review every other week. That's what we've kind of recommended to people. If you can get at least 2 reviews a month, that'll keep you kind of in the running. It'll keep you relevant. It'll satisfy the engine. And also you want to keep that consistent. So reviews also start to lose steam after a few months. After, you know, a few months, they're maybe not as relevant. At the 9-month mark, they're not relevant at all in terms of, you know, how it's improving your rankings. Now, obviously, it is still helping with people that are physically coming across your listing and seeing that, oh, okay, wow, they do have a good rating. But in terms of, you know, relevancy to the search engine, it's not so much. So just make sure that, you know, you're asking for them, you're still pushing for them, let it happen organically. Please don't pay for reviews. Please don't create fake Google accounts to leave reviews. And just like kind of try and stay on top of it. It needs to be one of the disciplines that you maintain with your GMB. And make it easy for people. I mean, if you have a website, there's so many plugins now that that you can just add that will either showcase your reviews and make it easy for people to leave your feedback. You know, kind of going back to email marketing, if you're using MailChimp, which is free, just create an email template and just send it out, get into the habit of sending it out to people whenever you finish a job or whenever you know that you've had a positive experience with a customer or with a client, and just let them know, like, hey, we really appreciate you choosing us. You know, we'd love to hear your feedback. Here's a couple links that you can use, because not everyone has a Gmail account. And you have to have a Gmail account to leave a Google review. Luckily, most people use Google, but not everyone does. So for the people that don't use Google, try to push them and nudge them into the direction of Facebook. And if they don't have Facebook, then, you know, BBB or something like that, where the site itself has a lot of validity. And it's going to pull if somebody, again, going back to the beginning, were to Google you, they would see that you have those ratings listed in there. So here we go. So here's like a step-by-step. So today, if you have time or whenever, maybe you're doing it now, and you Google yourself and you come up with your GMB, just take note of like where your current rating is, and then see if that's something that you're happy with. I mean, if it's over 3, then you're good. You're in the green technically, but I mean, who wants to necessarily be at 3? You want to get closer to 5, obviously. Or maybe you have, you know, a 4.5 rating, but your last review was 10 months ago. You know, or, you know, they're just like super sporadic. So those are all things that even for me, myself, and other millennials, we'll look at that. It's like, okay, yeah, they have a 4.5 rating, but I'll immediately go and click, as you can see here in this picture, where it says most relevant. Like, yeah, I see it's like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, but I'll sort by newest, because I want to know what they're doing now and what that customer service and that experience looks like today. So yeah, you might have a bunch of really fantastic reviews, but if you haven't gotten a review in the past 4 months or 10 months, or, you know, the last 2 are not so great, I'm going to assume either your company has gone through new management, or maybe you went on a hiatus, or maybe there was some sort of financial issue where you kind of took a break from your business and now you're kind of recommitting. But in my head, I'm going to start to kind of draw conclusions from what I can see and the inconsistencies of your feedback. Now, if I see that you're constantly getting reviews, like in this case, this is very positive, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, and they're replying to the reviews and they're all 5-star ratings, I'm like, okay, great. I'm most likely going to have a positive experience when visiting the Avalon Diner. So those are all things to kind of consider. I would say, you know, spend some time, see where you're at today. And then, you know, from there, kind of see, okay, well, who have I done business with in the past month, or in the past 3 months, or the past 6 months? You don't want to reach out to people past the 6-month period to get reviews, depending on the kind of job it is. I mean, if it's construction, that could fly, just because they're still probably enjoying the benefits of your work. You know, if it's a new roof, yeah, that you could totally ask for a review after 6 months. I mean, if it's someone's haircut, probably not. They've gotten a million haircuts since then, and they may have gone to a different salon. You know, if you don't have that relationship with them, I wouldn't reach out. But make it a practice also to start storing some of those email addresses. Even if you're on the phone with them, you know, hey, you're going to get their contact information anyways. Also ask for the email, you know, hey, I want to send you an invoice, or, you know, we want to keep it on file, or, you know, whatever the case might be. It's a little bit harder with restaurants, in bars and things like that, things that are more like retail space. But again, people are going to, if you create like a little banner and put it by the register, things like that, and just tell people to leave feedback or give them some sort of a discount if they, if they do, or, an amount of money off of their purchase, people will go in and do it themselves. But it's not necessarily intuitive. So people will not automatically assume you're on social media. But if they see something that suggests, okay, this person is active, then they're more inclined to go and check it out. And then the last thing on here again is kind of what I was talking about, is just like make sure that you're replying to the reviews. I mean, not only is it important to the people leaving the reviews, but it's also important to the search engine. So this is like a huge question is, well, how many reviews should you be getting? I kind of went into this a little earlier, to try to get at least, if you're asking for it, because obviously it's a numbers game, not everyone is going to write a review when you ask, unless you're having multiple touch points with them. Just try to get at least like one every other week, so 2 a month. And then kind of going back to, Google is king, make it easy for them. Add the link, right here where it says Avalon Diner. That right there was a button where they literally clicked over, and then it opened up where you can see the stars and like leave your feedback and post. Now, again, going back to Google, you would have to have a Google account in order to leave a Google review. But it makes it really easy, especially on mobile devices, because it'll automatically just populate this field for you to be able to do that. With Yelp, someone would have to be logged in. Facebook, everyone generally has the Facebook app on their phone, so it'll automatically populate just like Google does. But if there are other platforms that are more relevant to your business, like I know, for example, for contractors, they use, a lot of lead generation services through HomeAdvisor. It makes sense for you to have reviews on HomeAdvisor if a lot of your leads and traffic comes from there. Same thing with Thumbtack. I know Nextdoor, the app, has become a super popular platform also within the last couple of years. Make sure that you're asking for people's recommendation, and don't shy away from that. It just needs to become practice, just like anything else. When you complete a job, hey, would you please mind going back and sharing your feedback, or can you leave, some sort of star rating, or even just like, write some sort of a recommendation. Right now, specifically, since like not all businesses are considered essential businesses and operating, this is a great time that if you're going to go and patron someone like a coffee shop or a restaurant, and you didn't necessarily go there before, leave your feedback. I mean, pay it forward, and then share that on Facebook, or so other people know kind of what to expect. So that's some food for thought. Industry specific sites. Again, it just kind of depends on the industry and the vertical that you're operating within. But here are some of the really, really popular ones, the ones that kind of make a difference. And yeah, Angie's List, HomeAdvisor, TripAdvisor, of course, Yelp, Facebook, Google, those are, king. Yellow Pages is surprisingly still relevant. I remember receiving that when I was much younger, but I mean, just in terms of search rankings also, it pulls into it. And something to know, a lot actually about Yelp. Something to know about Yelp, and a lot of people try to shy away from Yelp just because they don't have a great experience dealing with Yelp. Yelp reviews actually pull into the Bing and the Microsoft search engine. And then it's also pulls into Siri. So whereas, some people are more inclined to use Google, other people use Siri and Bing as a part of their device. And that's where those reviews will pull into. So they're all important because they port and partner with different platforms and search engines. So you really can't neglect one or the other. And then you also just want to make sure that, if someone is, for example, getting driving directions from someone, on Maps, on Apple Maps, that it's going to go to the right place, because that information might be right on Google, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily right on Bing. So just make sure that, again, that, whatever your directory listings are, your citations, that they're correct, and that you've tested them, or you have someone that's testing them, or have some sort of a program in place that's checking that information for you. Because you want to make sure that if people are finding you, that they're having a positive experience with that information. So, okay. So the next thing that we're going to get into is paid ads. So hopefully by now you've created your GMB, you've optimized it, you've claimed it, there's pictures, you've got your business hours, you've got your star rating up, you know, people are finding you, your reputation is there. The next step generally is paid ads. So paid ads is really a way, and there's different ways. I mean, not everything has to be necessarily hardcore lead generation with paid ads. Some of it can be just sort of like brand expander, or, you know, impressions based, or, you know, promotional based or seasonal based, where you can kind of allocate smaller budgets to serve different purposes. So like I was saying earlier, I know that some people have not necessarily had the best experience with paid ads. And again, I think that this kind of goes back to, you know, digital marketing being unregulated for so long. And when you have people just calling you all the time, trying to sell you different ad space, you know, I came across someone who paid something like $4,000 to advertise inside a shopping cart, to pay for the ad instead of a shopping cart. And I was like, what? $4,000 could have gone so much further online and reached so many more people. But, you know, just different strokes for different folks, I guess. But for me personally, I spend a whole lot of time online, be it, you know, reading my email or on social media, or just browsing or reading articles. And I'm sure you know and have come across, you know, just the different ads and how creative they've gotten about being able to position, you know, your business in different areas and different spaces. Now, the good news is kind of going back to localized marketing, is now you can run ads that are specific to your area, specific to your zip code, specific to, you know, maybe a radius around your business. I mean, you can get super highly targeted with some of the paid ads that you can run these days. Most people, you know, just think that it's sort of like an interaction between what they're already interacting with online. So it's supposed to be fluid. It's not supposed to be invasive. It's supposed to be just, you know, kind of targeted already to your interest. That wasn't always the case, but I'm sure even now, if you're, for example, planning a vacation and you're shopping hotels, you know, some of the other ads that you might see online might be based on, you know, different activities that you can do while you're on that vacation, things that are going to be relevant that you might want to buy, preparations, things like that. So it's like things that you may not have thought of. Either you're like, oh, you know what, I am going to need that, or I am going to have to plan for that. That's sort of where paid ads has sort of shifted. So that way it's more, you know, again, intuitive as opposed to, you know, invasive. So paid ads, everyone clicks on paid ad, or I guess like half the people click on paid ads. Not every type of paid ad. For example, I don't generally click on the type of paid ads to show up at the top of Google, but I will click on banner ads, for example, or I will click on an ad that's on social media. So again, depending on your business, you know, the effectiveness varies. But in terms of brand awareness, it's highly effective because people will remember the graphics and the imagery tied to it. So with every type of paid ad, you want to make sure, if you're investing in money, that if somebody were to click on it, that the likelihood of them completing the action that you want is going to be high. So you want a higher conversion rate. So if they click on the ad, where are they going? Are they going to a book an appointment page? Are they going to a contact us page? Do you want them to buy something specifically from, you know, that website? Is there a product? So e-commerce is something that's really emerged in the last 10 years, where there's just tons of advertising and services that are being provided that way. If you don't have a website, you can also develop landing pages. So these are just single pages that allow these people to take an action. But you want to make sure that you're capturing this, so that way, even if somebody doesn't complete the action, at least you're able to follow through at a later date and continue to target them until, you know, they have completed that buying cycle. So just, again, if you're going to be throwing money at paid ads, make sure that you have a strategy in place, and then you make sure that you're making it super easy for the person to follow through and complete that action. So if you're a plumber and you're running an ad, they're going to call you to make an appointment, or they're going to call to request a quote. Where is that quote going? Is someone checking that email? Who's following up with that email, and who's calling them? And what sort of system do you have in place to call them within, you know, I don't know, an hour, to make sure that that person is getting the service that they need. Same thing with, you know, if someone is trying to buy something or schedule a consultation, make sure that, you know, those things are not just going into the ether and no one is following up, that you are following up diligently with these leads that are coming in. So best strategies in place is, again, making sure that your messaging is consistent. This kind of goes back to the content writing that we were talking about above. What does your business do? Do I understand what your business does? Is it clear to me what services and products you offer? And then, is it easy for me to do business with you? Can I call you? Do I fill out a form? Do I just, take whatever action I need on your website? Make the conversions really easy. Of course, at different times throughout the year, or even at different phases in your business, it's going to make sense to A/B test different strategies. Maybe you're rolling out a new product or service, or maybe you're changing up something a little bit. Instead of changing it completely, just kind of introduce alongside what you already have in place what that would look like. And then just kind of keep an eye on it and see, okay, well, how are people receiving this information? Are they engaging with it? Is no one engaging with it? And then that way you can kind of keep and tell, whether or not it's working. And then just kind of make note of some of that data. So it's like, okay, well, this particular month I had this many customers come in for this service. When it cost this much money, it did better, or it did worse, or whatever. Or, nobody is interested in the service, or they are interested when I bundle it with this particular thing, or during this time of year, because of this, this affected that. And then just kind of keep that information so that way when you do start running targeted ads for that sort of thing, you can pull all that data into that, and you can say, hey, I know most of my customers come from this zip code, from this area, they're interested in this, they're within this demographic, and it can become, you're not having to start from scratch, and you can target that. So, and then again, if you don't know what to do with that, you can always, solicit the help of Google. They'll help you run paid ads. And there's other platforms that can do that as well that you can pay for, that'll just kind of do an ad builder for you to help you and guide you along the way. So here's a different type of ads. So I was talking about that I don't click on on these particular ads before. That doesn't mean that other people don't. These are super, super, super highly effective ads for a lot of people for different reasons. And a lot of it is just because it's able to pull a lot of the information that's in the GMB directly into the ad. So I know the name of this business, they have a website, they have, they offer their services. There's the 3 different call to actions. I can learn more about them. I can call them and I can view their testimonials. I know where they're located. I know their business hours, and then I can directly call them. So I physically didn't even have to visit their website to learn about them or to be able to decide whether or not I wanted to take an action with this. So if I know that I have a need it now service, or I'm sorry, a need it now request, for example, like legal services, where I don't necessarily want to spend a whole lot of time just going through Google, calling a bunch of different places. I'm going to call, I'm going to set the appointment, and I'm going to learn more, and then I'm going to go from there. Same thing with other need it now services. As a painting company, I might look at the gallery, which is why they have CR work, exterior painting, interior painting, free quotes, things like that. These are the things that they know over time, and being able to look at those analytics that are pulled from Google and probably from A/B testing, that they know, hey, these are the 4 most popular pages on my website. So that's what I'm going to showcase in my ad, because I know that's what people want to see when they're looking to make a decision based on what company they're going to choose. So they put in that they're a professional, they have affordable pricing, and then, hey, this is our information. We do interior, we do exterior, this is our portfolio, and we offer free quotes. That sounds pretty good to me. So I might call, and if I call that, hopefully somebody answers on the other line. So making it super concise, very direct, kind of going back to that content and making it easy for people to work with you. Okay, so then you have local service ads. This is actually something very, very new. They went into beta last year, so this is not even a year old. But this is actually for people that are within the service industry, like contractors and technicians and things like that. So I don't know if any of you have had a negative experience with a contractor. I definitely had when I bought my house. I had someone remodel a bathroom, and I pulled them off of Google, and they did not finish the job, and it was a terrible experience. And whatever, I've since spent a lot of money redoing it, but this is actually why this kind of came into place as a Google guaranteed. So anyone within the service industry, because you don't know, and it's a lot of money tied into it, you can now get Google guaranteed by Google, to make sure that you're a legitimate business, that you don't have any sort of outstanding issues with anybody, any sort of pending lawsuits, that you're insured, that your guys have background checks. So that way, you know, people, searchers that are finding and calling you and having you come into their homes can feel safe and secure that the person that they've called and are going to do business with or opted to do business with is a valid, legitimate company. So this is now pulling Google reviews in. It ties to their website, but this is a newer type of lead generation for contractors, because now instead of paying per click, they can pay per lead. So if someone is typing in roofer in the area, they're pulling up the 3 best ones that are kind of coming up for that service area. And then you can select which one you want. And instead of paying per click, you're going to pay per lead. So if I were to click on that, it's going to take me to that business's profile, and it's going to present me with a form, like a request a quote form to fill out my information, and they're going to contact me. So this is actually something really cool that's actually recently come out. I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay. Oh, so different types of ads. Now I have a frog in my throat. Okay. So now you have different ads on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. They all have completely different price points, and they're going to target completely different demographics. On Facebook and Instagram, they're going to tie into each other, and they're going to play kind of the same ad, and it's going to show up a little bit differently. On YouTube, you're going to see it in the commercials. On LinkedIn, it's going to be much more like a lead generation ad that showcases through. So with YouTube, for example, you'll see it in the video, you'll see the scrolling, you'll see the carousel ads, and people will have the opportunity to skip the ad, and you won't have to pay for the ad unless you've actually completed viewing the ad. These are some of my favorite carousel ads on for products on Facebook, and these are the ones that will also showcase on Instagram. This is awesome for e-commerce. Oh, sorry, just 1 second. Okay. Oh, going back. Okay. So the different types of carousel ads. And so display ads are actually something that's been around for a while, but it's only recently started being used more and more. And it's mainly due to a retargeting feature. So kind of going back to that sort of like non-invasive sort of, I'm just going to present digital billboards to you that you may or may not be interested in. They've kind of come up with this approach of retargeting. So if you've already visited a website and shown interest in that company or doing business with that company, you now have an opportunity to retarget them with a banner ad. So for example, like if you were to visit RevLocal and you were interested in digital marketing, but you weren't necessarily looking to pull the trigger just yet, you might be targeted with an ad like this. Now, if you were to re-engage with that ad, it'll reinitiate that cookie and continue to follow you around for 30 days. So the point is to bring people back to the site. So because now we're engaging with content at different times of the day. I'm sorry, there's something in my throat. 1 second. Okay, sorry. I've been talking so much. So retargeting ads. So because people are engaging with content in different ways and at different times of the day now, sometimes it could just be when you wake up in the morning, you're still in bed and you're just kind of scrolling through. You're not necessarily processing, but that information is still there. So you could be presented with information there. People drive all the time and they're kind of scrolling passively, on social media, looking at different websites, when they're driving, or, maybe they're at work in a meeting, or maybe they're waiting for a friend, or maybe they're at dinner. Basically, any time that we have that's idle now, we spend on our phone. And so this is why one of the reasons why retargeting has become such a successful way to advertise is because it allows you to passively reintroduce yourself to customers that are already interested in you again and again. So if they leave your site, you can always bring them back to your site into those different call to actions that you want them to take. It's also cross-platform. So kind of seeing like the circle in this, if someone, for example, finds your website initially on Facebook and they see an ad and then they come across your website on Facebook. They click on to your website to learn more about you. They leave your website and then they see you again on a different platform, let's say Instagram. They click on the ad. They kind of maybe shop around for a little bit. They don't pull the trigger on maybe buying anything or anything like that. And then now when they're reading an article on ESPN or something like that, they might then again be presented with that information again. So in cross-platform, and especially because Google has such a wide network of websites that it's partnered with, you can really reach these people with any level of interest that they might have. Some of the more popular ones are obviously like news sites, shopping sites, cooking sites, all of that. So I mean, it's and then again, it can get really targeted to the people that are, again, clicked onto your website that are already interested in you, but also within a certain area. So I might click over to your website because I've read an article. Let's say you're a restaurant and I live in San Antonio and I've heard about your restaurant in Houston. The likelihood of me coming to a restaurant, unless I'm in town to go there, are not going to happen. And in that way, running ads in that sense doesn't make sense. But if I do live in the area and I live within a 5-mile radius, if I continue to see the ad about your restaurant, for example, I'm much more likely to go because then I'm further solidified, like, oh, this restaurant's pretty popular. I see their ad all the time. And, I see it on social media and they're really active. And then, all those pieces start to come together to not only create that demand, but meet that demand. So the retargeting can really help kind of put you in front of people whenever, you're a new business in the area and people don't necessarily know that you're there just yet. Or maybe you've rebranded, or maybe you're offering a new service, or even, for example, like right now with COVID, if people don't know necessarily that you're still servicing the community, this is a really good and inexpensive way to reach your audience and stay relevant. So it's like, hey, this is my call to action. This is what we're doing. And then you can, again, target the areas that you want, or the interest that you want, the demographics that you want, or zip codes. I mean, you can get super, super specific with those types of paid ads. So again, so you have the targeted ads are at the top of Google. You have local service ads for contractors and service area industries. And then you have, social media ads, which, can serve different things for lead generation. And then you have retargeting, which is going to allow you to stay in front of the people that are already interested in doing business with you and kind of bring them back. And hopefully, complete that buying cycle. So with social media, again, not all of them are going to be relevant. Someone who, does dog grooming, for example, might not necessarily benefit from having a super, active LinkedIn profile, business profile. A personal profile I always recommend is important, just so that way, people can engage with you and kind of learn a little bit more about you and your network, and then, just kind of opt to follow where you are in sort of like your professional career. But in terms of like having a business LinkedIn, for example, that's only going to be relevant to certain industries. So these are the ones that are ideal. These are the ones that Google does look for to interact with. and does pull content from and holds and leverages. Well, since then, a couple more have come out, but these are still kind of like the main dogs that have kind of been grandfathered into this process. So you have Facebook, obviously Facebook bought Instagram. You have LinkedIn, which is the professional networking social media. YouTube is for video. So if you do a lot of video, it's super effective. Don't do video just because. Make sure that if you are going to commit to doing a YouTube channel and create video content, they're doing it with quality, and that's something that you're going to continue to do forward. Something I will say about social media, and this is actually really important, is that whatever social media you decide to commit to, I do recommend you going in and registering your business for all of them. Even if it's inactive, just go ahead and claim it, so that way you own it, and that way down the line when you decide, oh, I want to be active on Instagram, you don't find that someone else is using that name. That can be really, really frustrating, especially if your brand does become popular in the area, and then people go and find it, and then they're like, oh, well, I don't understand, this is not them, like, well, where can I find them? And then you've got 5 different handles going on. You want to make sure that it's consistent across the board. So whatever the name of your business is, go ahead and register it for all the different profiles, so that way you have that locked in. Now, but in terms of activity, if you are going to commit to a social media content strategy, which means that you're posting on social media, commit to a schedule that works for you. So if you're posting every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's great. Stick to Monday, Wednesday, Friday forever. That's what you need to do, because that's the sort of thing that search engines are looking for. They're looking for that consistency, and they want to see that the engagement is growing from that consistency. So it's like, hey, this person is committing to this. And then we see that because of that commitment, they've now gained in followership, they've gained in engagement, they've gained in shares, and then that shows the search engines that people are interested in the content that you're offering, and that it's relevant. So that's highly, highly important. It's hard for search engines to keep track of that information when your posting schedule is all over the place. So if you're posting on Monday, and then you're posting on Tuesday at midnight, and then Saturday you're posting 5 times that day, that doesn't work. Please stop doing that. The search engines don't like it. It's actually a huge red flag to them, and they kind of see you as unstable. Well, not you, but like your business and your social media presence is unstable. So whatever it is that you're going to do, make sure that you commit to it and that it's consistent. If you want to post every day, that's awesome, but make sure again that you can sustain that content schedule. There's tons of free schedulers that you can use. Hootsuite is by far one of the more popular ones. It'll let you schedule 3 profiles for the free version of it without having to pay for it. So most people will opt to do, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And then that way you can just schedule 30 posts for the month if you want at a time. And that way you can set it and forget it. In terms of content, if people are engaging with it and posting, I do recommend that you still kind of have those apps on your phone, so that way you can log in and reply to the comments and the shares. And then just continue to engage, in that sense. But even with Facebook, you can just directly through the Facebook app, go through and then just schedule your content there. And then you can kind of see, and it's going to pull the analytics from that. So it's really cool, because even at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, you can see, okay, cool. What were the more popular posts? What were people engaging with? What did people like? And then you can kind of go from there and use that to sort of develop further content strategies. It's the same thing with like graphics. Try a couple different types of graphics. Some people like to do quotes. Some people like to do photos of their work or their products, and then they'll add, the decal of their logo over it and things like that, and just kind of see, what people and what your customer base, likes and is following with, so that way you can continue to do that. But yeah. So Facebook. So 88% of Facebook users are accessing it via their mobile device. So this is one of those applications that most of the world has on their phone. So it's great in that it has huge visibility if you're actually using it. Earlier I mentioned that it is acting like a search engine. It's starting to pull a lot of that information and that engagement into those search results on the organic page of Google. Obviously you can use this on both devices, on your mobile, on your tablet, on your desktop. I mean, you can get Facebook basically anywhere. And there's so much information, and it's evolved so much into what you can do with it. Tons of people spend hours, like I guess here it says 5 hours out of the day. I don't spend 5 hours out of the day on Facebook. I probably spend about an hour just passively throughout the day, but outside of work for personal reasons, it's about an hour. But the cool thing about this is also though that it'll tell you when people are engaging with your posts. So that's some of the information that's also stored within the insights of your business page. Is it'll tell you, hey, your posts are most popular on Tuesday at 6 p.m. or whatever. It really depends. And so kind of keeping and being mindful of that information and that data will only make your content on Facebook more effective. With Facebook, you also have other types of paid options. You can also boost your posts. So for example, if you're doing a grand opening or ribbon cutting, or you're offering some sort of, you know, crazy promotion that you really want to get out to the community, the immediate community in your area, you can boost your posts. You can do this for like $5 a day. It's super inexpensive, and it'll create instant visibility on that. Reviews. I mean, we talked about how important it is to get reviews in different places. Facebook is, you know, second in line to Google for that. It's super, super important. It's super easy to engage with customers on Facebook and people that are engaging with your content. And then of course you can, you know, run paid ads. But this is an example, of a sponsored ad. These are for 2 different types of spaces, like one's for mobile and one's for desktop. And as you can see, like it's going to automatically reformat to fit the device that it's being used on. Instagram. So Instagram is a completely different platform in how you use it. So you can write whole stories. I guess you can on Facebook as well. But it's more so the storytelling. With Instagram, it's much more the behind the scenes. Like I want the big picture of like what is the nitty gritty of a business. So it's highly visual, super high quality photos and videos. And you also want it to be thematic. So when you land on an Instagram, for example, account, it's going to showcase 9 images. And so you want those to kind of sort of follow a theme, into where it's kind of leading the visitor through a story. And you want it to be a little bit more raw. It's less professional than I guess Facebook is. But it's definitely going to paint the picture more. So you want to paint the picture with the photos and not necessarily with the text or with the captions. And you want that really to kind of showcase and to translate. So if you are a highly visual sort of product or service, so if it's, you know, aesthetics or fashion or retail or cosmetics, even with contractor services, you know, before and after photos, all of that stuff fares very, very well on Instagram. Because it's really kind of showcasing the visual aspect of what it is that you can do. Just like Facebook, tons of people spend time on Instagram. I mean, it is a different demographic. It is a younger demographic, and I would say it's more woman-based than it is male. You can also search for things using hashtags. Hashtags are not as relevant on Facebook as they are on Instagram. You can, mainly because a lot of people would just post directly from Instagram to Facebook, so that way they're not having to manage 2 different platforms. But this is actually something that's super important on Instagram. So you want to make sure that you're Googling to see like what hashtags are relevant to your business and how you can utilize those. So yeah, so kind of going back to the best industries, like anything that's like highly visual, stimulating, or visually stimulating, you want to definitely make sure that you have an Instagram set up. So going back to travel, fashion, beauty, food. Oh, I totally forgot food. Yeah, would be great for Instagram, you know, any sort of home remodeling, interior design, contractor, things like that. And with LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn, I mean, this is, again, kind of a much more professional setting. This is, you know, for kind of showing what that career path looks like, not only for you, but, you know, in relation to your business. 94% of B2B marketers on social media use LinkedIn to publish content, which is huge. I mean, even for me personally, I have content scheduled through Hootsuite that goes out on a weekly basis on LinkedIn. A lot of my professional connections have been through LinkedIn. How I follow up with businesses and networking groups and things like that, a lot of that's been through LinkedIn. And it's just a better platform than Facebook or Instagram, obviously, for things like that. But it's a great way to just kind of show people, you know, hey, this is something that I'm serious about and I want to share it with you. You know, where other places it might be a little bit more passive setting. This is definitely like, hey, let's make something happen. So if that's more your tone, then I highly recommend using LinkedIn, and then creating some sort of auto-scheduled content through there as well to use that. So this is kind of what the platform looks like if you're not familiar with it or using it. This is for you personally, and then you can also have it for your business as well. So I recommend listing both. And even if, for example, where it says John Smith and it's an interior designer, under that you can also list the URL to your website or even to your business page. Make sure that that information is there as well, so that way people can kind of read up on the content that you're publishing on LinkedIn. Because what you publish about yourself and how that's relevant to the business may vary from the content that you're publishing directly to the business itself. YouTube. So this is, again, for video. So video content, this is different than advertising. So if you're creating video content, again, make sure that you're committing to a particular content calendar, a content strategy. Make sure that your videos are all kind of on par and look the same, have the same look and feel. Make sure that that it's being stored correctly, that you're tagging it correctly with things that are relevant to your business. And then, because this will pull into the organic part of Google. So if somebody were to Google your business by name, it is going to pull your YouTube channel and the content associated with that. Most people are going to be looking at this on a mobile device, so make sure again that it's formatted correctly. This is going to require a little bit more of a technical skill, but again, highly effective. You know, between photos and videos, a lot of people spend a ton of time just watching YouTube videos. And if you can create playlists for different things and then just have it automatically play or link into other things that are playing that are similar, then this is going to be the most effective way to use YouTube. Here's an example of a video and what that would look like. And so it'll showcase the number of views, how many likes, dislikes. If people want to share that video, that share link, you can, you know, tie it to emails, to other social media posts. Hey, go check out my video here. You can even share it directly through text messages or, you know, direct messaging platforms as well. And the idea is for someone to subscribe to your channel, so that way they're getting those instant notifications that you're releasing new content. So again, this is also something that's super highly visual. Even how-tos work for this as well. That's actually how a lot of that content came to be. But for fashion, for beauty, again, food and travel, interior design, and then health and wellness are great for YouTube channels and Twitter. So this one is one of the older ones, but still an oldie but a goodie. People are still tweeting. It's still very relevant. It does have a wider range of an age demographic. This is much more quick-witted news, updates, around the world information. This is a way to kind of, you know, grasp more information in a quicker, you know, time frame. So yeah, so it's used for international use, for gossip, updates and trends, promotions, things like that. If you're posting of anything with COVID, this is a great platform for that. People are not spending a ton of time on this the way that they do other platforms, just because it is more fast-paced. But again, you know, make sure that the messaging is consistent and that people are engaging with their content the way that they would on other platforms. So here we go. Here's an example of what a post would look like. You only have a limited amount of characters. You can add URLs. You can also do tags for other businesses. Cross promotion is obviously encouraged, and you can also add photos as well. Okay, so these are, I know that there's a lot of information. We covered a lot today. But I mean, considering we have a lot of time on our hands, I guess, that we can sort of dedicate to our businesses and our online reputation, these are essentially the main pillars, and they're designed to be built out in phases, like, but in no way, shape or form am I saying that, hey, these are all things that you need today and that you need start working on. Every business is in a different phase and a different part, but it is important to kind of go through and check to make sure that you're crossing, you're doing your due diligence, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's when it comes to your online presence, because all of these things are going to greatly affect, your online visibility and how people can interact with your content online, and whether or not they can find you online. I can't tell you how many times, I hear, oh, well, no, I'm on Google. And then, I can be at the next major intersection away from their business in Google for something that they should offer, and then they don't show up. So just make sure that you're taking the time to kind of look at some of these things. I would always say just start with the citations. Make sure that you're showing up and you're being found correctly on all those citations, that you're managing them, you're making sure that the keywords make sense, that your business descriptions make sense, that if somebody were to find you on Google, they're having the same user experience that they would have if they were to find you on Foursquare or on Yelp or anywhere else. If you're updating information on one of them, that you're updating the information on all of them. That you're consistently generating new reviews, that you're spending quality time on that, and that that you're replying to them, and that you're showing the gratitude that one should in receiving some of that feedback, especially if it's positive feedback. Expanding your reach with paid ads. This is obviously something that I think people should partner with someone who knows what they're doing, just because they are expensive. I mean, you can run small ads for $5 a day, but I mean, there are paid ad campaigns that are running at $10,000 a month, and more. And it just kind of depends. And when you're making that kind of investment, you want to make sure that it's being done the right way, and that you're gonna see the ROI on your investment. And that all can be done with defining your audience. So making sure you know who you're targeting and what that looks like, and that's clear to you, and that if you are after you've defined your audience, that you're reaching them with the right tone, that the messaging is clear, that it makes sense, that it's appealing to them, and that it's consistent. So make sure that again, that you're using social media to continue to re-engage with them, to continue to put yourself in front of them, and to engage with your community, and to keep you relevant for those products and services that you offer. So if you want more information, obviously, just check out the RevLocal website. We have awesome blogs that we publish all the time. If you want to subscribe to that, there are tons of free tips in that, and also how-tos in that. They're not as long-winded as my presentation today. And then you can even break it down into different specifics that you're interested in. So even if it's like, hey, I have a bunch of bad reviews, like how do I fix that? What can I do to correct that? Or, I want to do a Facebook Live. How do I go about doing that? If you want just tips on anything, really, the blog on our website is actually super highly effective. And even for me, it's like whenever there's a new update that comes out, I'll go there to check it out as well. So that's what I have for you guys today. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the Q&A. So I will open up the questions to see what you guys have. And let's see here. Okay, cool. Oh, there's so many of you that want a copy of this presentation. That's awesome. I will definitely send it out to all the participants that joined us for today. I see someone asked, what choices do you have as a home-based business? So that is a great question, especially with the increasing cost of brick and mortars. A lot of people have opted either to move their business in home, or to just, they just happen to offer, services I don't necessarily need someone to drive to. The good news is that Google recognizes that a lot of people are working from home now, or remotely, or even mobilely. And so in creating, for example, a GMB, you can actually set your business as a service area. You will initially have to put your business address as your home address, but you can hide that. So it's not going to be visible to anyone. It's just Google needs to know, okay, well, where are they technically operating out of? And then even for that geo marketing, whereas again, it's not visible to the public, that's where your marker is going to be the core of your business. And then the radius around the visibility that you create for your business is going to be centered around that as a nucleus. So like, let's say, for example, you're like located in the heart of the Galleria at 77057. That'll be your core, and then your radius, and then the sort of the reputation and the authority that you build with search engines is going to grow out and expand from there. Every new business starts at basically a 1 mile radius. So whether you have a home-based business or a brick and mortar, it starts at that 1 mile, and then it grows from 1 mile to 3 to 5 to 10, just kind of based on how committed you are to your local search strategy, and some of the things that we talked about today. So home-based or not, the GMB is still really important. Set your service area for the different areas that you want to check. I'm sure you've seen it on a map of what that looks like. Most people set it at like a 50-mile radius. So basically everything that's in Houston. And then still continue to go in and build a website and get reviews and make sure that you're doing your citations as well. You will be able to hide your address on the other citations. So everything is still going to continue as normal, except it just won't have an address. So if somebody were to click on your GMB, it'll just say, visit my website, call now, and it won't have driving directions. So I hope that answers that question, but everything remains the same, except it'll just hide your address. So the same thing if, for the next question, do you need a GMB if you're an online business? So if you're an e-commerce business, no, not necessarily, unless you're super active in the community and you do pop-ups or you partner with other businesses, or you do things that are very localized, where if I were to Google your business, that I want to find where you are here in Houston, or even in Texas if you're doing stuff in Dallas or San Antonio. But if you're only an online business, for example, like a consulting business, or offer professional services, I would say yes, just because when I Google the name of your business, even if I'm getting it off of a business card or someone refers me over to you, I'm still going to want to Google it. So I'm still going to want to find the website. I'm going to still want to read the reputation about your business, and interact with some of that content. So same as the one above, you can hide your address. You can still make it, you know, sort of a remote business, but it's recommended unless you are completely not engaging with anyone and you're an e-commerce business. So emailing out the deck, I can do that. I don't understand my question. So paid ads. Should you schedule your paid ads consistently on social media and Google? That's a great question. So all paid ads, regardless of what platform they're on, are going to go into machine learning initially. So if you've never run paid ads, it's going to go into machine learning, meaning that it's going to pull all the data that it has from your Google Analytics, from your Facebook Analytics, your Instagram Analytics, and it's going to try, and very much like AI, learn what your ideal target market is. The problem with that is that it needs enough budget to run through that successfully. So we always say that in the first month, if you've never run paid ads, allocate over budget for it. Let it run successfully and make sure that it's not going to run out of budget, so that way it can do what it needs to do to aggregate the amount of conversions that it's going to need to be able to say, okay, great. With that budget, we got 20 phone calls. We've got 50 successful purchases on my website. We got, you know, this many forms filled out. Like whatever it's geared to do, make sure that it can do it successfully, so that way it can have the data to then go back and say, okay, cool. This is how much it costs per acquisition. This is how much the lead costs. This is how much I'm going to need realistically every month to run a successful campaign. It can't do that unless it has like a first initial budget. And then after that, you can schedule it however you would like. So it just depends on what your goals are and what your initiatives are. If you're running it, for example, like let's say you're doing an event, and you know you're only running an ad once a month for that event or to promote that event, then you can do it that way. But either way, you want to kind of gear it towards how long it's going to take people to come into contact with that information and then have enough time to complete that buying cycle. So if it's an event, more than likely 2 weeks out to run those paid ads for 2 weeks before that event makes sense. If it's a high ticket event where it's going to cost, you know, $100 or $200 to be able to attend, then you're going to want to give them more time, because people in their heads have to now financially prepare for like, okay, wait, how many paychecks do I have before I can buy this or plan for this or set aside time, or I'm busy or I'm out of town, and accommodate their calendar. If it's something like, for example, you're buying a house, which has a significantly longer buying cycle, you're going to be wanting to run ads consistently all the time, because you never know when someone's, ready to pull the trigger, and then you would not want to not be presented as an option towards the end of that buying cycle just because it was a budgetary issue. With locksmiths, for example, they're very highly dependent on paid ads. The second they turn them off, their business is basically done. And that's the case with a lot of contractors and things like that. So you want to take into consideration how long the buying cycle is. And then if you have a solidified online presence in other places. So if you do have to pull, ad budget off or turn it off or pause it for any reason, is it going to be sustained by the engagement that you're creating in other places? And again, that's going to be completely different for all industries. If you have more questions about that, we can actually continue that conversation. We have an entire paid ads team dedicated to that can go into that a little bit further. Okay, so B2B and B2C businesses, what is the difference in social media marketing and strategy? That is a phenomenal question. So a B2C is to the customer is more so, hey, I'm here, this is what we do, this is what we can provide to you in terms of content. It would be like, these are my products and services, call to action. So call to schedule an appointment, come in, call for more information, visit our website to learn more. I mean, you always want to present yourself as, hey, this is what we do, and we are the solution to X problem, whatever that problem might be. And all your content should be geared towards that. B2B is different. It's like, hey, this is what I do. How can we partner in this sense to achieve our goals? So it's much more in sort of in much more in a setting of, okay, because now you have like two different sort of strategies that you're trying to approach. With B2B, there is still the issue of the solution, but in the problem, but it has to appeal to both parties. So the content that you're writing is going to vary, I guess, depending on how many people you can technically meet with, and how many people you can partner with. So because, like, for example, with us, like, we partner with so many different types of businesses, our strategy is completely different. So our content strategy is very different. Actually, if you follow us on LinkedIn or just check out the page, you'll see kind of what that content strategy looks like. Because the tone will vary and change depending on what our objectives are. Sending more of the presentation. So yes, if you want to schedule Facebook posts directly through Facebook, I believe so. I think you have to do it through the desktop version. I don't think you'll be able to do it on your phone. You can schedule a post through your phone, definitely, obviously. But I don't think you can set multiple posts to schedule out from your mobile version. You'll have to do that on desktop. So chiropractors, yes, we've gotten so many calls from chiropractors in the past couple of weeks, and a lot of them have reopened for emergency services, for pain services and things like that. Yes, I would say add it to your website to say that obviously you're taking all the necessary precautions to stay mindful of the COVID crisis and things like that, but that you are still seeing patients. If you, I can actually reach out to you and send you some of we actually have a whole blog that's dedicated to chiropractors right now and like what they can do during this time. But obviously posting something on Facebook, adding it to your website, changing it on your GMB. You can even run ads actually for that as well right now too. But they're considered an essential business, so they're actually absolutely able to operate and treat patients during this time. So I would say actually you could just probably go to RevLocal and Google chiropractor best practices during COVID, and then you could get all the tips and tricks during that as well. So is creating social media free to register? Yeah, actually, absolutely. That's a great question as well. So Facebook is free to create, all of them are free to create. Everything is free to create. You don't have to spend any money on that at all. Just make sure that you're spending, after you create each of the social media profiles, that you're going through, you're adding a profile picture, you're adding a cover image, that you're filling in the business description. So, you know, what you guys do, what your services are, what your contact information is, your phone number, your email, your website. If you have a physical address, you know, making sure that that's in there as well. After anyone creates a new profile, I generally recommend people to just kind of go through and share it with everyone that's in their friends list. So if you have, you know, 600 friends or 5,000 friends or whatever, just have them go through and support you, because whenever they like something that you've posted, that now shows up on their feed and their friends' feed, and it creates instant visibility for the content that you're now sharing. So obviously you do want to also create new followers on those pages, but just that initial kickoff, just go ahead and share it with, you know, people that you're friends with on Facebook, so that way you can kind of create that initial buzz and support and engagement for your posts right off the bat. And so more, can we download? Okay, yeah, so I'm definitely gonna be resending this out. Is there a way to optimize Google website for retargeting? No, unfortunately right now, that's a part of Google. It's basically just a directory listing. So there's no ads for that necessarily right now. The retargeting is geared towards your websites, or really anything that you can put your cookie in, which is primarily just either a landing page that you've created or a website that you've created, because there is a code that's tied to that you have to put in, so that way it can retarget. So you can't do that on obviously sites that are owned by other people. So you wouldn't be able to do it on Google. So so can you outline a short-term plan for all new businesses and their first steps? So actually that's essentially what this entire presentation is. So, you know, make sure that, you know, you have a business name, create your GMB, go ahead and register all your different social medias with that same name. Work with someone on getting some sort of a website or a landing page created. Make sure that it's very clear. I would say focus on 3 services that you actually do. Don't go all over the place and say that you can do all these different things. I've come across some businesses that, you know, sell furniture, do reupholstery, do power washing, and then, you know, also do like consulting services for what, and I'm just like, that doesn't even make sense. So pick one thing. What is one thing that you're really, really good at? I usually say, what is your most profitable service? And what is your most popular service? Things that you do really, really well and that make you a lot of money, and focus on that and then build out from there. And then just make all the content about that. Again, you want it to be a no-brainer when people come across your content, or they see your business card, or they shake your hand, or they refer you to someone, that, you know, that this is what you do, and that you excel at that this is your bread and butter. This is something that you are very highly specialized in, especially as a new business, because that confidence has to translate, and it has to translate not only when you're meeting with other people and you're talking about what you're doing, but also online. And if you're kind of winging it, it's very transparent. It becomes transparent to other people. And then that's why they start to go to your competitors, because they're like, maybe not so much, or I don't know, there's something off about that I don't necessarily, you know, want to engage with just yet. People don't want to roll those dice. You know, they've been screwed over too many times. They've been led down that rabbit hole. And so it's just really, really important now, especially since things are kind of, you know, self regulating now on online, that, you know, you're doing everything very diligently. There are no shortcuts, but it's also not that many steps. So just, you know, make sure that you're doing it correctly and that you're following a plan. So the GMB, filling it out, doing your directories, registering your social media, building out a website that looks good, that is not just like piecemeal together. If that's something that you have to save money for, save the money. Just like anything else in life, you know, don't just kind of throw something together that's kind of makeshift and then spend more money to fix it, and then it creates a bunch of issues. That digital footprint with Google is very much like a credit score. If you have a low rate and a low rating, it'll stay there for a long time, and it becomes very difficult to fix. So you want to make sure that you're doing things by the book correctly and they're not cutting any corners. And then from there, work on your content calendar. And then, you know, okay, what am I posting on social media? You know, even if it's once a week, that's fine. Just something that you can do and that you can commit to. that's gonna work towards you. And then, you know, down the line as things progress and you can talk about, you know, paid ads and things like that. And then of course you can always network with businesses in your area and partner and, you know, kind of use that sort of to gain momentum as well. I know a lot of people use Chamber of Commerce and BNI and things like that to kind of get the message out about their business if they're a newer business. I just created my GMB and verified it a few weeks ago, but it did not show up because of COVID. Yes, that's true. If you just created a new business within the past month, you're not going to get your postcard just yet. Google had to send home a lot of their employees, so they're actually short-staffed right now. So it's going to be a little while before you get it. If you already have a GMB and you want to make changes to it, you're okay. If there is a GMB created for your business, but you don't have ownership of it and you request ownership of it, you're going to kind of go into re-verification just as if you were a new business. So it's going to take a couple of weeks too. So honestly, we don't have any answer to that. We're also waiting for some of the newer businesses that we've started working with to kind of wait for those to come through. But yes, that is absolutely because of COVID. For Facebook and for any social media with posting, it says for Facebook, should we be aiming to post more frequently, like every day or every other day? And what about GMB? How often should you post to that? Yes, great question. So with social media, again, post what you think is something you can commit to. If it's once a week, great. If it's once every day, that's great. If it's, you know, every other day, fine. It doesn't matter on social media. What matters most is your consistency and your commitment to it. So whatever that looks like. And it can be different things. One day it can be an article that you've posted that you just copied the link that leads to somebody else's website. It can be a reshare. It can be a graphic. It can be a photo. It can be a video. It can be a link that leads to your website. The content varies. It can be whatever you want it to be. Just make sure that it's a consistent schedule. On your GMB, you don't want to post that necessarily every day. We recommend between 2 to 4 times a month. So it's every other week or once a week, just depending. But make sure that it's actually new content and like a new promotion or something that people can look forward to. Right now during COVID, it does make sense that people have been posting more on GMB. But it's not a social media, so you don't want to post to that every day. You only want to post like really, it's almost like breaking news, kind of like, hey, we have a new product. Hey, we have a new service. Oh, we're open for this. We've got this party going on. Or we've partnered with so-and-so, go check out the website. Or we're closed today, or we've updated our hours. So like really major updates are the things that you want to be sharing to the GMB. So free website options. I don't think there are any free website options anymore, because even with free templated sites, you still have to pay for hosting and for a domain registration for the year and things like that. So, I mean, any initial investment, you're still looking at probably $100 a year just through registration and hosting. I would say, again, kind of going back to that, you don't necessarily want a free website. You just want to maybe save for that and partner with someone that you trust to help build that out for you. Because either way, even after you build the website, it's kind of like a car. You're gonna have to maintain it for life. So there's gonna be monthly maintenance, weekly maintenance that needs to go into that to keep that relevant with Google. So then do you offer step-by-step instructions regarding H2 create and optimize Facebook ads? We do, we can, we definitely can, but that's a much more in-depth conversation. So I can reach out, or you feel free to reach out and we can have that conversation. Yes, I can email this out, the presentation out, because yeah, there are definitely a lot of step-by-steps in here that you guys can follow over the next couple of weeks if y'all want to do this on your own. The template, is there a template I can use so I don't miss anything that customers need to know and how it will help me? The internet is not so big and bad. I know that it's kind of like if you're new to it, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but you know, again, that's why we put together this presentation, because these are super essential steps that can make a huge impact in your online visibility and searchability and things like that are free. Most of the stuff outside of paid advertising is free for you to use. and free for you to kind of work with and utilize. And a lot of it, if you were just to Google, you know, hey, step by step for this, it'll walk you through it. There's tons of tutorial videos. If you're trying to claim your GMB, if you're trying to create a listing, if you're trying to, you know, check your citations to see what's missing out there, how to optimize things, what things to do. There's all this stuff can be found online. That's the beauty of Google now. But for the most part, the 4 things y'all are going to want to focus on that are going to help you rank and actually be found are, again, make sure you have your GMB, make sure that you're taking care and you're managing those listings, your reviews, because they account for 30% of the search ranking now, and then making sure that people are engaging with your content. So I don't mean just post a bunch of things on social media, but make sure that you're posting things of value that people find interesting, that people are like, you know what, that's great. I actually pulled something away from that. That are going to make people inherently want to click the like button or click the share button or, you know, refer someone over to you. It's not just about like, let's just post a bunch of content. That used to be a strategy like 10 years ago because it was more so about volume. We've transitioned into an era of quality. People want quality things that are easy to work with and that make sense for what they're looking for. There's so much noise out online now that it's hard to decipher, you know, okay, well, I just want to focus on this. And so that's why it's important now to make sure that your messaging is short and concise, that it makes sense, and that it's consistent. Wherever people might come across you. So if it's on Facebook, it's consistent with the information that they're finding on your website. If it's on the website, they're finding the same information on your Google. And that's what matters these days. So just take it one step at a time and then like let those building blocks sort of fall into place for you. If I'm selling on Amazon, should I use GMB? And is it enough to direct customers to my products and website? Unfortunately, no. I mean, it's an aspect of that, but it's definitely not going to be enough. You're realistically going to be leaning on a paid ad strategy through Amazon, but you'll have to make sure that your store is completely set up first before you can do that. But the good news is that you have cross-platform ads now that can retarget people for you. What are your thoughts on using Nextdoor for local search purposes? Nextdoor is amazing. If you have it, use it. If you're active on it, even better. It's super highly effective. People love doing business with people that live live next door. That was the whole point of the app. And if you're really active in your community, then this is something that you can really leverage in your favor. So that's awesome. Kudos to you if you're using it. Yes, continue using it, post it. Make sure you're getting recommendations, add photos to it, really, really optimize that business profile on Nextdoor. If you have a personal profile, you can also still have a business profile. You can't do both. So for example, you can't promote your business through your personal. You'll have to create a business and then reference that business. So there's a little bit of some red tape there, but if you're using it, it's super highly effective. Should I register or trademark my business name before creating social media pages? You want to make sure that the name is available. Yes, absolutely go and LLC your company or have it registered, get a DBA, because there's nothing worse than falling in love with a business name and then getting all this stuff set up and to learn that it's not available. So yeah, definitely go through the proper channels of registering your business correctly before, spending any money or time, diving into the branding side of your business. Should an owner of a business have a LinkedIn page for a company he or she owns or personally for himself? Both. Do both. Because essentially on LinkedIn, there's 2 parts that people are going to be looking into. They're going to be looking into you as who you are as a person and how reputable you are and what your business is. So same goes for there. Make sure that you're filling it out. People can see kind of what your background is, what your expertise are. Endorsements are still really important on LinkedIn. And then now you have recommendations. So people can leave reviews for you on LinkedIn. I make it a point to go through and ask my clients to leave reviews for me and their feedback and what their experience has been working with me on LinkedIn. And so that way when people do, decide they want to do their homework and their due diligence and check me out, that they can find that information. So they can not only read about RevLocal and see all of that content and what that looks like, but they can also learn a little bit more about me and what it would look like to personally work with me. So I do recommend having both, and making sure that that content is diversified. So the stuff that I post might be more relevant to some of the clients that I work with, some of the projects that I'm working on, things that I'm doing in the community, whereas Rev Local's business page is probably going to post more content about strategies, what people can do, blogs, events that we have going on in the community, things like that. So it is going to be a little bit different. I created a business page without linking it to my personal page, which limits my ability to advertise. Would you be able to assist me with that? Yeah, definitely. Send me an email. My email is, if y'all didn't catch it at the beginning of the presentation, it's jmcohen, C-O-H-E-N, @revlocal.com. If y'all need any help with some of this stuff, I'd be happy to help. But yeah, that's actually a pretty easy fix. So I linked my Facebook to Instagram, but it is still telling me to claim my Facebook page, which I did, but not working. So that sounds kind of like a technical issue. I would maybe try to unlink it and then try to relink it again. But if your Facebook is claimed, it should show that it's a claimed page. Those are just kind of technical issues. Again, if you want to reach out, we can work through some of that stuff. Are there free online schedulers? Yes, for social media, you have Hootsuite, you have Buffer, B-U-F-F-E-R, you have Later, L-A-T-E-R. Those are all pretty great. Later and Buffer will actually allow you to see what it would look like if you're trying to be really diligent about the graphics that you create for Instagram. It'll let you see what all your posts look like in the grid. So that way you can kind of move it around to make sure that, you know, you don't have contrasting photos and, you know, that everything has like a nice flow to it. So I would recommend those three. How do you handle home addresses that you don't necessarily want listed online? Do you have a PO box? Yeah, so you can't use PO boxes anymore, or virtual offices or virtual addresses or anything like that. Google put a kibosh on that last year, maybe it was the year before. And again, a lot of that had to do with people that were kind of creating multiple listings for their business to target different areas of town. Even though they only had one technical business, they were just putting map markers everywhere to saturate the market. So Google put a kibosh on that, and that's again why they had to send out either the postcard or the phone number to verify those addresses. So you cannot use that anymore. You'll have to use your home address and then just hide the address. That address will not be visible online. Don't worry, no one's gonna, you know, see a picture of your front door or anything like that. It'll literally just show a map of Houston, and then whatever photos you upload to kind of showcase some of the services that you offer with your business. So if you do use a PO box, you will get suspended, or Google will just take your business listing down, which you don't want to do, especially if you've spent time gaining reviews and gaining traction and linking into social media and things like that. There's that's one of the ways that you can cut a corner, and it always ends badly. So just don't do it. Don't risk it. What is a good platform for building a community chat for customers? Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question. That's not really something I'm too familiar with. I would just, if it's kind of like a forum, I'm honestly not so sure. But I mean, that's what social media is. I mean, if you want to ask a question or take a poll or see what people's feedback is, that's the whole point, is that, you know, you can engage with your customers there. So that's actually what it's intended for. So I would recommend using, you know, something like Facebook to get some of that engagement. But yeah. So do you know what the minimum paid advertising investment is? So again, it depends on the platform, it depends on the business, it depends on, you know, if you're running ads for just an event, if you're running it for a whole month, if you want to run ads 24 hours a day, all of those things are considerations to take into account. I will say, just like some ballpark numbers, if you are, for example, a restaurant or a bar, you can get away with running paid ads on social media for probably $500 to $1,000 a month. which is actually a pretty healthy and aggressive budget. If you're like, let's say a contractor, if you were to do that on Google, for example, that would be like $1,500 because catering kind of then comes into play and it's very competitive. If you're a contractor service or you're a service area, it automatically goes up just because you don't have that pin, that push pin and that marker. So you're talking about, you know, $1,500 to $2,500 a month in paid advertising. E-commerce is probably the most expensive paid advertising budget you'll have out there, which like starts at like $2,500. A healthy budget's like $5,000. And then it just kind of goes up from there. So it just depends on where your goals or your objectives are. I've seen people that kind of start on the lower end and they phase it up little by little. So as more money starts to come in and then, you know, they start to do more jobs or have more ticket counts, then they increase the budget. And so that's something that makes sense for a lot of people, but paid advertising budget just kind of depends. Physicians, you know, you're talking $3,000 to $6,000, you know, dentists are on the higher end too. It just, again, because there's one in every shopping center, it's very competitive, you know, that reputation is there. So different things to consider. But okay, guys, well, I really enjoyed sharing this with you guys and answering your questions. You know, again, I will share this with everybody so that way they have it. It'll have my contact information there as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But thank you for giving me your time today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I guess like have a good weekend. Bill, am I passing this back to you or am I just saying goodbye? Okay, I guess we're calling it. All right, everybody, have a good afternoon. Have a great weekend. Thanks.